Okay. All right. Well, thank you for joining me today, entrepreneurs and C-level and above executives. We are here today with a special guest, Leon, and we are going to share some good meaty information. So, as you all know, we always talk about things that are going to help our business owners and our leadership to prosper, move forward, be more productive, be more mindful and conscious in their particular day. And we help with all type of strategies, anything and everything that is relevant to helping outcomes and revenue skyrocket. So today, we have Leanne, and she's going to be here in capacity of helping us to understand outsourcing and freelancing, because that certainly can help us to have a better sense of time management and avenue throughout our day to maintain our energy, because that is proficient in helping us with productivity. Now, she has a company called 2XU Executive Services Incorporated. She also has a podcast, Virtual Ate Interviews, and her specialty again is outsourcing and freelancing. So I want to tell you a little bit about Leanne. She's a young Filipino girl boss. So she started this process off really, really young, and I can contest to that because I started my career really, really young as well. And she is a CEO and co-founder of 2XU. Now, this is a remote executive assistance service company that helps connect entrepreneurs with the right executive assistant. And I can tell you that is so important. So she has been working from home since 2011, and she has worked as a book editor at a U.S. publishing company starting at age 18, and she became the CEO at age 20. And that's quite impressive. And partner up with her boss to start 2XU Executive Services at the age of 23. Now, we know that we have some young entrepreneurs at this particular stage in the game, because the internet gives us so many opportunities. Now, she also has a coaching brand, and she trains people on how to work from home. So we're interested in really finding out some meaty and juicy information. Not only is she those things, but she's an international speaker as well. So grab your coffee, grab your tea, turn off all distractions. We want to gain some meaty information in helping us to be efficient with time, and helping us to learn how to employ those people that can help us, especially for solopreneurs and even those executives that need an extra little hand. And that's what I teach in my coaching strategy. Learn how to use resources effectively. Even if you have an office full of folks, there's still some things that freelancers can help you with. So, Leanne, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. It's actually 10 p.m. here in the Philippines right now. So I like your energy. It's waking me up a little bit.
All right. Yeah. So in the States, it's about 9 a.m. for me. So that energy, you have it at the very beginning of the day. And so learning to preserve that energy is one key source to help me more productive. Now, where did you get started, and how did you get started working online so young?
Well, it was very much a kind of really me twinkering on the internet, just like you said. Like that's how like a lot of the young entrepreneurs have gotten started. I was posting on a blog. I was also part of this Facebook group for writers where we would help each other out. And one of them literally saw me and said, "Hey, I really like the way you write. Can you write this way for my blog?" And I was 15 years old at that time. I was in the Philippines way before in that time. It was where we just graduated college. They changed that now, but I just graduated college. I was kind of bored. I was posting like 2-3 times a week on my blog because it was summer. And then that's kind of how I got started, and then got like jumped from gig to gig, kind of became a graphic artist in there, video editor. I kind of became like someone who did events also at one point, like online events at one point, before there was such a thing as online events. So I got to jump around with working online just because I would be willing to learn and be able to jump in, like, okay, I can watch a YouTube video about this and see if I can learn this by myself. So it was a lot of that. And then when I was 18, I started I moved on my own to another city because I had really bad PTSD, and then worked for a US company, still working from home, but I was in another place.
All
And
right.
then, like I said, I became CEO at 20, started this company 2 years ago. So it's been a very fun ride, but I go back every time to that 15-year-old Leanne who had no idea there was such a thing as working from home. My only dream at that point was to become a lawyer, the usual Asian plan. So that's kind of just how I got started.
I think that's interesting. It's kind of off subject that because you're not the first person from your particular area that I've interviewed, and they were a lawyer, but they stopped practicing to do other things. So I didn't know that it was culturally sound to become a lawyer. That's interesting. Okay. That's interesting to me. Now, let's kind of talk about this in the context of you were gathering a lot of skills before you even knew you were gathering skills. And so that's of course, it makes sense to become a freelancer outsourcing. But one of the things that I want to know is when did it click that this was a business opportunity, even though it may have seemed scattered? Kind of walk us through that.
Well, it kind of clicked when my relatives hired me for a job. It was something that, of course, it never seems real until someone like from your family or one of your friends really believe in you.
Okay.
Up to that point, whenever I would receive money through PayPal, I would send it to my mom's account because I was underage. I was a minor. So at that point, when my uncle actually hired me to do the video editing for their class reunion, I was like, I can really do this. This is something that not just people I meet on the internet believe in. It's
Mhm.
something that my family believes in. And then it was around that time that I started thinking like, okay, can I do this full time? Can I not just keep doing gigs? And that's kind of how I kind of did get started with the US publishing because before that I just had gigs. I never had a full time online job. I've never found it. And then I found it with them.
Okay, so for those that don't know, gigs is basically a terminology that means it's a job that someone hires a freelancer for. Okay, so it was at that moment that you understood. It sounds to me that your validation came from your family, which increased your confidence at that particular point.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
okay. And so then you did all of your necessary things in corporation and things that particular sort. Or when did it become really a full blown business that you put everything in its structure?
Well, it was around when I did become CEO. Because at that point I wasn't anymore a freelancer. I was more employed. I was
Uh-huh.
starting to run a business. And then that's when I started seeing all the different parts that went into it. Because of course, before it was just me. It was me finding clients, was me taking care of them and making sure that I delivered. And at that point when I became CEO, I'm not anymore that person. I'm now taking care of the people. I'm not focused on the finances part, which is really
Yeah.
scary at 20. I was more focused on growing and making sure that everything was in its place. So that was when it really clicked, because before then it felt like I was just playing around. It felt like I wasn't really, I was just working. I wasn't really thinking of it as a business until it came to that point where I was given that zoomed out version of what a business looks like.
So the responsibility in another company helped you to understand what business really was.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. Now, to my understanding, there was an event that happened in your life that kind of circled or made this thing real for you. You want to tell us about that event that helped shape?
Yes. Basically, 7 years and 2 days ago now, because it happened on November 8th. Basically, there was a superstorm, and it's still the strongest superstorm to have ever make landfall. We kind of we're at the very center of it. It was it was a normal Friday. It was one of those days where we're very used to having a storm because we lived facing the Pacific Ocean, so we were used to it. So we thought it was like normal day. We packed our food, and then at that time, when it was happening, I was even just cooking breakfast. We were all chill. We were like, okay, if the lights go out, we know where the candles are. So it was very kind of routine. But then water started coming in our house, and that's never happened. Where it was like starting to rush up. and I keep getting goosebumps even though I've told this story a billion times, where it started just my siblings were screaming and we were all panicking and we were trying to get everyone up to our second floor. Luckily we did, and a lot of people didn't, and we're unlucky because the water started rising up really fast.
Yeah.
And then at one point our windows, which was glass, shattered open, which of course let in more water. Luckily my family members were already on the way up, but I was left downstairs because I am the eldest. So I went back to get more food just in case that we were going to be stuck there. I didn't know if it was going to be a flood for days. So I went like, okay, no, you guys go. I'll go and grab the plastic bag with the all the food. I'll grab all the matches that we have and the candle. And then so I was like you can imagine, I was walking in one hand with a plastic box with the food. On the left hand I had the big candle that we had, and on my mouth was actually a matchbox because I was trying to just get everything in. And I had like all of our electronics have been wet at this point. We have no idea how to contact people, and both my parents were out of town because again, we thought it was just going to be a routine kind of storm. We were watching Disney movies the day before. So we got to the point where everyone was upstairs and I was the only one left. And my mother's furniture, because they were all wood, started floating up, and they were floating towards me. Mm-hmm. And I could feel the water almost up to my mouth. And it was literally a flash moment. Mm-hmm. Imagine an 18-year-old girl who had plans to become a lawyer because that was the set plan of where I wanted to go. I looked at that life of the life flashing before your eyes. That happened. It happened, but it also happened where I saw everything beyond that, like everything after I graduate from college, everything after I go through law school and find a job somewhere outside of the Philippines, because that was the path. Yeah, and I hated it. I hated it with it was like a split second, but it felt like, I still remember, it felt like forever of me going through my life and seeing everything. And then I literally thought, I am going to change my life. And I spit out that matchbox because it was still in my mouth. I screamed for my brother. He ran down. I gave him all of the food, all the candles. Up to this day, I still have no idea how to do it. I tried to do it at home, but I got to our second floor using the landing. And I'm flexible because I used to be a ballerina, but I'm not that flexible where I could barrel over, and I got myself to safety. I still, again, no idea how I did it. It took 4 hours for the water to subside, thank God. But the next week we were scrounging. We were seeing the dead bodies. We were seeing the aftermath, basically, of that big of a superstorm. And since then until today, I always live by that of the decision that I made. I dropped out of college. I moved here on my own against my parents' wishes, but I built myself a life that I'm happy, that I'm proud of. And I always go back to that day until now. I still have PTSD. I go, like last week, I was in super deep depression because I knew the anniversary date was coming. Mm-hmm. So even though that still comes up, that the depression, anxiety, the PTSD still is still in me. Mm-hmm. I built this life, I took out the life that was supposed to be meant for me, and I built a life that I love and I enjoy, being able to have a business that I have, even though in a million years I would never thought of myself as someone who would be running a business. I thought I would be an employee or a lawyer. Yeah. And I just love the way that everything has turned out in the last 8 years.
Okay. All right. So how is it having, mental health concerns and running a business? How does it affect your functioning and your cash flow?
A lot of it is based on systems. So I love setting up systems ever since I learned how to do them. And I know that things will be kind of like habits. That's the way that I think of them, is my habits will always catch me if I'm going adrift, and will always be kind of the gauge that I know that I'm going bad. So it's the same thing with systems. So systems, if I'm not continuously doing this one thing, I know things will start going back. It's a symptom of something is underneath, is wrong in the core. So that's how I've been able to, even though I'm running, I currently help consult with the whole company that we have like 50 something employees now. I know that because I have set up the right systems, it still runs even without me, because the underlying reason for that is I have amazing people. I have amazing people that I can rely on, who now that they know the system, I could disappear off the face of the earth, honestly, for about 2 months at least, and everything will still be fine because I've set it up, because I've trained them. I've given them the ultimate power and authority to be able to run things even when I'm not there. So those are the kind of biggest things. It's just I have systems and I have really awesome people who back me up when I need them.
Okay. So I guess the psych medical provider in me just want to ask you about, those times when you do feel like you are down. What are there strategies? Are there tools that you use? Because I know that there are a lot of people, not just entrepreneurs, not just executives, that's dealing with depression and anxiety, especially because of it could be mental health as genetics portion, but it also could be the pressure of the job. So in those times, although your business does not need you specifically to run, how do you get out of that phase?
So a lot of it was knowing that I had it, knowing that I had to really acknowledge it, because before I got actually diagnosed, because in the Philippines, the stigma of mental health is so big. It's gotten better in the last couple of years, but at that point, I was scared to see a psychologist. I was scared to take antidepressants, it would damage me, blah, blah, blah. And my whole life, now I know this because I did go to a therapist. My whole life, I did have anxiety already. I was just always being told that it was all in my head. So it was really hard for me to get over that first hump of like, okay, I have this thing. It doesn't have to define me, but it's something that I have to work with and deal with. And then once I had that, then I started building my habits, which is, meditating, it's journaling, it's getting outside, which is why the lockdowns actually drew me crazy really bad for a few months there. But, now we're able to move around here. It's then after that, after I built my own systems, then I know that people can basically in a lot of different ways. People know when I'm down, when I'm not feeling well, so they know that they can kick in, they can help me move things around. And I have an awesome assistant who also helps me out and makes sure that I get things done even when I'm off, because I call it basically I'm autopilot. I'm on autopilot whenever I am depressed, which sounds weird, but it's because of all of the habits that I have set up, that even though I'm so detached, even though I don't want to get up, I still, for some reason, still do get up. I still get on Zoom meetings with clients. I'm still able to finish out any reports or any major tasks that need to get done. And then I can go and rest and kind of repair and work on myself. So having also really good support system with my assistant and also my mentor helps a lot in making sure that even on days where nothing seems to go right for me, just because that's the way that I'm thinking, I'm still kind of saved in that way because I have that group, because I first acknowledged everything had to start with me.
Okay. All right. Now, I appreciate you sharing your story. A lot of people are so afraid to share their story, but the more you share, the more you acknowledge, like you said, the more you can get on track to help you to be the healthiest person. And so I appreciate that vulnerability. So this big incident helped shape you. It helped you understand who you are now, what systems that you need to put in place for your business, and it sounds like for yourself as well. And then one of the biggest things that I hear you really talking about is self-care. So as a CEO at the age of 20, what big lessons did you learn, and what propelled you to learn those systems from challenges?
Well, the biggest one, which I had to learn literally within 2 months of me being given the title, was to hire the right people. We had to fire 20 people in one day. Because what happened was the company was growing, so the publishing company was growing so fast, then of course then we were bringing in people, and because I was so new at managing people, at leading people, I was just hiring if their resume looked good, if their test came back great, then they're hired, they're working with us. We didn't filter out for that point was values. We didn't filter out for if their personality was even right, because a lot of people can't handle working from home. So that was the first thing, was within 2 months of me being CEO, with me being able to look at people's hours, being able to see people's reports, I started finding out that there was a really big toxicity problem within the company, something that I already felt before I became CEO, but I got the bigger confirmation once I was able to see everyone else's work. And it was basically people who thought that they were better than all of us, people who thought that they could run their own publishing company, which funny enough, 2 months after we fired them, they did start one and then published one book and failed. So it was definitely like a character problem. It was definitely a personality problem. So that was the biggest one that I had to learn, because we literally went from a company of 25 to just 5. And I had to do everything. It didn't even feel like I got a promotion, because I was still editing books. I was still creating graphic covers. I was still, doing the stuff that I did before I got promoted, because, I had to wear all of the hats all of a sudden, because we were running really at the skeleton manpower. So that was the biggest one, and this one that I still keep having to learn, because no one's perfect. Sometimes people tell me a really good story about themselves, and I believe them, just because I always still believe people are the best at heart. But that's definitely the biggest one. Is you could have the smartest person in the room, you could have the best resume, they've been recommended by so many people, but if they don't have the right character or personality, they're gonna be a bigger problem later on.
Yeah, and I think you make several great points there. Number one, the point of entrepreneurs and leaders having fear in delegating or teaching people what they know for that same exact reason, afraid that they are stealing ideas. So I know that you are learning to overcome that. Here is how I answer that. I say nobody can be me. Because nobody has gone through the experiences. Nobody has gone through my type of perspective, from my education, from my family background, from my faith. So nobody has all of the pieces to be me. That's what I have learned. And so therefore, because I had concerns years ago, I've been in business for a long time. And I've also, been in executive roles with big corporations. But I will tell you this, that during the course of that particular time frame, I began to define why it was necessary for me to delegate versus why it was not necessary for me to delegate. Because people have a hard time letting things over because they feel like nobody else can do it better than them. Do you get a lot of that kickback from some of your new clientele? Do you hear that a lot?
It's definitely one of the first lessons that we kind of make sure that they kind of understand is that they're here. They approached us to get to have them have an executive assistant, to train an executive assistant, because they can do it themselves. So that's one of the things that one of our processes is actually list down, like, okay, what are the tasks that you don't really have to do, and what are the tasks that will help free up everything, because everyone, there's different terms for this, like zone of genius, but there's always the one thing that you're good at. For you as a coach is when you actually talk to people. So everything else before that, someone else can do, taking care of your clients, like sending them gifts, for example, for their birthday, or it could be doing the lead generation for you, or posting on social media, which is usually one of the first things that you delegate anyway. So you have to kind of realize that you're already drowning. That's why you're asking for help. So if you're not going to give this kind of the full thing, we're not going to be able to help you. That's one of the first things, because I had to deal with that, where it was really hard for me to admit that I needed an assistant as well. So I went through literally the same thing. And I have I still have like a ton of quotes around my room, where one of my favorite is just, if someone can do it 80% as well as you, then just delegate it. So that's kind of like, one of the major lessons that I had to learn. And it's the same thing that you said, of you had to learn that no one can really do it as well as you. And I luckily learned that early on when they did start the publishing company and failed, because I'm like, oh yeah, they don't have my marketing experience. They don't have this kind of thing that I had to go through to be able to keep doing this. Since then, it's happened at least 2 other times where people said, oh, I can do this better than you, and failed. So that's been proven over and over again, where people try to steal ideas or concepts or stuff that I've done, but because they didn't go through all the crap that I had to go through, they still had to learn it from scratch, and they still failed in that way. So you have to realize that if you're really scared of delegating, if you're really scared of giving people access to your Facebook or your social media, keep in mind that you are still you. And also keep the other side of it is, keep in mind, is the world is so abundant, the world is so big. You are right now, you're talking to someone who's in the Philippines, and like that's halfway around the world, and there's going to be so many other combinations of people that you're going to meet that you never really, if they do successfully start a business that's the same as yours, like literally the same as yours, then good for them. That means that they figured it out even without having to go through what you did. That doesn't mean it's competition, doesn't mean it's a bad thing, but keeping in mind that when you're delegating, you want to build that loyalty. You want to foster that, you know, that they want to keep working with you, that they want to keep helping you grow, because that's essentially how you build a business, is you keep finding people who will want to work with you, will want to help you, who believe in your vision and whatever it is.
So as a business owner that works online, how do you manage your staff? I heard you say you have a large amount of staff. So what are some ways, some strategies that you can teach us that maybe we don't know that will help us to be effective in managing our people online and offline?
So there's three things that I usually make sure that is covered, especially when we're working with clients. The first thing is making sure that you're giving them the right tasks. Exactly what we're talking about is making sure that it is the task that help you make money, because a lot of the time we just throw tasks at them without even verifying that it does help us make money.
Right.
And then, so that's the first one, is making sure that you're giving the right tasks, making sure that it's clear to them as well. You're not just throwing tasks at them. You're showing them how it's done. And then the second one is systems, which is my favorite part. It's making sure that you document things. There's an easier way that I always remember is basically say what you do, which is document everything that you're doing, and you have to do what you say. You have to follow the document, or else it's going to be worthless. So that's why systematization helps a lot, because it's faster when it comes to training. When I'm giving someone a new tool, I train them on it, they help me create the system, and then they can train other people. I don't have to be the person who's a parrot talking over and over again, showing people how to do things from scratch. So that's the second one. And then the last one is building loyalty. It's building that, like I said, building the want for people to stay, building the want for people to keep working with you because they like your vision, they like you as a person as well, because that's essentially what my boss got. He built that loyalty with me. So that's why even when I wanted to start a new company, I still wanted to do it with him, because I believed in his vision. I believed in him as a mentor as well. So it was basically a way, of building that loyalty is basically a way that I've now stayed here for 6 years. I'm still working with them. I have my own company, but it's still connected a lot with what they're doing because of that. It's building loyalty is as easy as just asking them, how are you doing? How was your day? And basically the essential question is, do you need anything? Because a lot of the time when you're working with VAs, you don't see them. You don't know, sometimes they're struggling, that they're sweating, that they're sick, that they have a family emergency. So just asking them how you're doing and do you need anything helps them kind of break out of that of like, okay, I'm really struggling with this. I'm really trying to do my best, but I've been failing. I really need your guidance. Is there something you can help with? And of course, as the business owner, as the boss, you're going to be like, oh yeah, no worries, I'll take care of it. We'll do this. This is something that I actually went through already. This is how you fix it. I'm sorry I wasn't able to give you instructions, because a lot of the time the biggest mistake that people make when working with people online is assuming that they just know what to do, the VA will know what to do next. So doing all those three, like again, making sure the right tasks, it's systematizing, and also just checking in on them, building that loyalty is going to be the top three things that, even though you've never seen each other in person, and a lot of the people, because we've been in a pandemic, I've never seen a lot of our employees, they're still growing, they're still building, they still want to be in the company aside from the pay, basically.
Well, how do you build loyalty? What are some key steps that one can take to build loyalty with their particular employees?
Well, one of them was checking in on them. It's that small step of checking in on them and making sure that they're okay and they have what they need, because sometimes they just needed the one tool that you have, but they have no idea what it is, that will help unlock all kinds of productivity. The other one is then investing in their growth. So for me, I'm a huge bibliophile, which is why I wanted to start working in a publishing company in the first place. And when my boss found out about that, he started giving me business books. He started giving me like, I still have some of them even on my table just because I was talking about, like, I have books like Richest Man in Babylon. I have books like The E-Myth and Influence. So these are all books that as I started learning other stuff about, the on-hand stuff about how to run a business, I already kind of had the structure because of the books, because of the courses that I was given access to. So never be afraid to invest in their brains, basically in their education, in the way that they can think bigger, not just their skills wise, because you can have the most skilled copywriter in the world, but if their mindset is so limited, if their mindset is only just, okay, I'm just going to get my paycheck and leave, then they're not going to help you grow that business. That's someone who's just going to probably be a one-time freelancer. You probably want to have someone who is invested in your growth, who is invested in your company, because that's the biggest thing that will help you in the long run. So those are the two main things, is checking on them and then making sure, or helping them grow in whatever way that looks like.
How often should you check in on them, being that they are a freelancer, they are VA, and you're giving them these particular jobs and tools? How often should you check in on them?
On the first week, I actually recommend, first week or first 2 weeks, I recommend almost daily, just Monday to Friday, checking. That's just the chat. It's just sending them a Slack, message or Messenger. It's just checking like, hey, how are you doing? Do you need anything, any help? And then it's just once a week checking in. And then usually it'll be, because they're used to not communicating with you, they're comfortable communicating with you. They'll be the ones to approach you. They'll be the ones to talk to you. That's the thing that happens every time, is just checking them once a day, and then soon, once you're kind of sync, then you just have to check on them once a week, or maybe even twice a month at that point.
Okay. Now, we were talking about loyalty just a few minutes ago. And so one of the things that I want to know from you, do you, along with loyalty, along with showing that you care, along with checking in with them, do you provide your staff with any other incentives that keeps them? Because a VA has the flexibility, right, to go and do, especially after they began to learn. So are there any bonuses, any things extra that you do to help them to stay committed to your company?
Well, basically, it's also, of course, about providing whatever basic government needs. Since we have the corporation in the Philippines, we make sure that they have their Social Security, their HMO, all of the medical stuff. And at the same time, the other thing that really kind of keeps them is just having them also like network with everyone else in the company, because we do have a really big filter to get people in. I know that everyone else who comes in are nice, who are funny, who are, really smart, because they had to pass all of our tests. So networking them in that way, like having them meet each other, even though it's just all through Zoom. When we do our Zoom meetings, it's like full of like 50 people on one screen, but doing that just gives them like, oh, I have someone behind me. I have a tribe behind my back. I have, a backup if I needed some help. Even though I had no idea how to do this one thing, I can tap someone, or I can ask, Leanne, if she knows someone in the company who can help me out. So even if a executive assistant really needed help on like a website, we can tap someone from the software company of like, hey, can you help her out with this? So doing that of having that network, having them talk, builds more of a reason for them to stay, not just because they have friends here, but because they know that if in a pinch, they can always ask for help.
So them understanding that they have community of support is one of the incentives you provide. Okay.
Yep.
Well, Leanne, if a business owner or an executive wanted to reach out to inquire about your services, where can they go to find out more information?
So they can go to 2xu.com. So that's just 2xyou.com. That's all of the information there and how to be able to book a call with us. And basically also my Facebook page is just for anyone who also wants to talk about, if you just want general advice on how to work with freelancers or how to work from home. It's just my name all in one word, is LEANLAALACABA. But it's just my Facebook page where I just respond to every message that I get.
And we'll put some of those things in the description as well. So they can find you on Facebook there. Can they find you anywhere else on social media?
I'm on everywhere, because I am also a YouTuber. So I have a social media links at everywhere. I have Instagram, LinkedIn. I have, like I said, YouTube. I'm on Pinterest. So basically it's just my name. Every time I have the same username for everything. So it's easy to find me.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you being here. And we're going to go ahead and close out the show today. We do appreciate our special guest today, Leanne. And I want to help you understand that while having a VA or a freelancer may be scary initially, after you get over the fear hump, they can be very, very helpful in helping you to save time. Now, time is the new money. And so the more time you can get back, the more freedom that you can have. So consider going to her site to inquire about her particular services. So guys, I thank you for tuning in. Remember that new episodes come out every Thursday. So make it a great, productive day, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now.